Dear ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure and honor that I stand before you today at the final conference of the project Baltic Bridge to Alienating Societies, Discovering Shared Values to Ensure Regional Stability. This initiative, led by Delphi and supported by the Nordic Council of Ministers Office in Lithuania, has been a step towards fostering hope and understanding in these challenging times. The background of this project is rooted in a profound need to address the growing misconception between societies in the Nordic and Baltic regions and our neighbors in Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia. In a world where misinformation and propaganda are widespread, it is essential to debunk myths and disprove stereotypes through open dialogue and shared stories. Through a series of videos, talks during the project, as well as the panel discussion today, we want to highlight the experiences of those who have had to leave their countries and seek protection elsewhere. By sharing their voices and stories, we hope to build empathy and solidarity across borders. As we work towards greater understanding and solidarity, it's important to recognize the rights and responsibility of both countries of destination and the migrants themselves. Integration requires mutual respect, understanding, and cooperation from both sides. Recipient countries should provide protection and opportunities for education, employment, and social inclusion, while migrants should embrace the values and norms of their new homes and actively participate in their new society and be allowed to do so. This project is not just about addressing immediate challenges, it's also about laying the groundwork for a more sustainable and integrated region. In line with the Nordic Council of Ministers Vision 2030, we recognize that true solidarity and regional integration cannot be achieved without close collaboration and understanding among neighboring societies and people. During our discussion on fostering understanding and cooperation, we cannot overlook the urgent need to support Ukraine in its fight for democracy values and the rule of law. Looking ahead, when the conflict ends and people return to their countries, they will bring back valued lessons from the democratic societies of the Baltics and the Nordics. It's my hope that they will use this lesson to rebuild their nations and societies with a strong commitment to democracy and human rights. And projects like today can play a key role in this. In closing, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to all those who have contributed to this project, from the dedicated team of Delphi to our partners and supporters. In the face of hard times, it's easy to give into fear and division. But today, we choose a different path. A path of dialogue, compassion, and shared humanity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dear beloved guests, participants, Delphi viewers, and our partners. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to introduce today's conference with a variety of very important topics that we will have in our panel discussions. In today's panel discussions, we will explore the differences and similarities between the societies of the Nordic, Baltic countries, Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia. Vilnius has always been a multicultural city. In today's geopolitical situation, we have sizable diasporas from various countries, neighborhood countries, that have found a home in Lithuania. To find home and to live in the country, it is what Helen said, that you have to understand how the life is going on here. Also, we, citizens of the country, we have help people to integrate to the society, help with different things, but the most important things to my mind is information and reliable information that Delphi always provide for mentioned countries' diasporas. Our news portal's Russian edition team is a symbol of our multinationality. In our team, we have citizens of 3 different countries, which helps us to be open for discussion and cover a variety of topics. In our editorial, we often say that our small team of RU-Delphi is a forefront of different kinds of wars. I kindly invite everyone to participate in today's conference discussion and to follow our live broadcast in Delphi. Thank you. Have a fruitful discussions.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Monica. We are starting with the first panel, and it's called Baltic Bridge to Alienated Societies, Voices of Integration and Personal Narratives. Thank you, the organizers, for bringing us all together here, and thank you so much for our participants, because I know how it's difficult to talk about your personal stories, especially when you are in very vulnerable position and when you come as a foreigner, as a migrant, as a refugee, especially. And the life is in migration is not a Disneyland, as Alexander Kuchta, one of our participants, said when we were talking to him. And I will present now all our participants, and when I will ask them to present them themselves. So I would start with Egle Masivichuti, and Egle is the manager of foreigners integration program of Vilnius Archdiocese Caritas. Ksenia Nikolska is from Ukraine, and Ksenia is the coordinator of Caritas Humanitarian Aid for War Refugees from Ukraine in Kaunas. Yes, you help them. And we have Alexander Kuchta, Father Alexander Kuchta, who is a priest initially from Belarus and also very popular as a Christian blogger, I would say, can say like this. And Father Alexander joined here the Orthodox Church, and happily the Constantinople Patriarchate finally. So we are glad you are here. Anna Tamilina is from Russia, and she's a psychologist, and she presents here the International Childhood Research Institute. So saying this, I would also say some words about the circumstances that brought us here, and all of you also. We know that, first of all, it was, we had these few waves of migration in the last 4 years. First of all, it was a huge migration from Belarus after the so-called presidential elections and the violence there, very violent repressions. And we had a lot of migrants from there. Then another authoritarian regime decided to launch the full-scale war against Ukraine, I mean Russia, and Putin. And it also led us to the second wave of migration, first of all from Ukraine, and also migrants from Russia, very political minded, mostly journalists, civil society, and all of them happen to be here. And also because of when the war started, the repressions in Belarus became even harsher. So we had another wave of Belarusians coming here. And I would like to thank, first of all, Lithuania for acquiring all these nice people here, because being so close to Belarus, to Russia, it's a very dangerous decision in some way. But still, Lithuania understands that human rights are very, very important, and we should bring these people here and help them. And maybe, as Helen said, some people will come back and bring these values of democracy back. So now I would like to ask Ksenia to present a little bit herself, where you're coming from and how it happened that you are here in Lithuania.
Лаба діна. Мене звуть Ксенія Нікольська. Я приїхала з Києву в Литву десь у листопаді 22-го року.
Back in September 2022.
Десь рік.
About a year.
Я не виїжджала, я не
I
хотіла
didn't
цього,
leave,
і, мабуть, це було
and
таке
I didn't want
спонтанне,
that, and it was a
дуже
very
емоційне
spontaneous and
рішення,
emotional decision to do
дуже
that.
емоційне. Мабуть, така була жага до життя,
Maybe I
жажда
had
жизни,
this
мне так
will
кажется.
to live.
Вдруг вот я это почувствовала.
I felt it,
Вот. И
and
позвонили друзья,
my friends,
которые были на
they
этот
called
момент в
me,
Литве.
who were in
И
Lithuania at
сказали,
this
ну,
time,
приезжай
and they
сюда
asked me to
сейчас.
come.
І це було рішення
And it was a
за один
decision
день, мабуть. От
that I
так
made in one
це
day
було
to
все.
just go.
До того я працювала,
Before
я
that, I was
музичний
working.
педагог,
I'm a musical
композитор,
worker, and I'm a
піаністка.
composer,
І все
pianist,
життя
and all my
проходить
life
в дуже счастливой эмоциональном состоянии, потому что музыка, потому что искусство.
going in a very
Вот так
happy
было до
manner
22-го
because
года.
music,
Вот. И
because
поэтому, когда
art,
мы
and it
приехали,
was happening
остались уже
until
здесь,
2022.
сразу,
And when we came here to
сразу,
Lithuania,
наверное,
all of a
такой
sudden,
свыше была мысль, что
maybe
надо
it was
искать то, что
some
я умею
voice
делать,
out
где я
of-
могу пригодиться.
out of
И я
there
искала
that
рояль.
was calling
Kaunas.
me to
Перші
try and
3 дні,
find piano
це була
in
міграція,
in
теж,
Kaunas.
треба все,
During the
всі
first 3
документи,
days,
все ми
there were
зробили, але
I was
де
solving different
рояль?
migration
От, це
issues,
життя в музиці.
but
Легше
my life
зразу становиться,
was
коли ти
much
попадаєш в
easier
то пространство, де все
in
понятно.
music.
Вот.
It
Я
was
знайшла
a
рояль в
safe
Центрі
space
культури
for me.
Нижніх
So I
Новгородів,
found
Марки Труда,
the piano
158. Там є дуже класний
in
центр.
one space in
Вот.
one of the
І
centers in
там,
Kaunas,
я
and I
розпочала свою
finally
діяльність творчу
started
знову.
my musical
Спросила, хто
activities.
здесь є, де
I
українці.
asked
Я знайшла
to
українську
share some
общину
contacts
зразу
of
ж
a
там.
Ukrainian
Вот. І
community
стала
that was
грати.
there, and I
Вот
started
так от,
playing.
розпочався мій шлях
And this is how I
в Литві.
started
Потім
my path in Lithuania.
создала українську
I created
групу
Ukrainian
ансамбль
group,
дітський для
an
дітей.
ensemble for
Вот, ми стали
children.
займатися з
We
дітками
started
і,
working with children,
виступати.
and
І
we started
виступали,
performing, of course.
много. Ми виступали где?
We had
В том
many
числі нас
performances,
пригласили, в
including
Caritas,
to
гуманітарні програми,
including in
культурні.
Caritas in
І
one
я
of the
очень
humanitarian
благодарна
programs,
судьбе
and I was
за
very
это
happy
знакомство. Вот там мы
to
стали
meet them.
заниматься с детками, выступать и помогать уже участвовать в
I
разных
continued helping
программах.
out by
волонтерских.
participating in different
И это
volunteering
продолжается по сей
programs,
день.
and it
Вот.
still
Так
goes
что
on up
вот
until
такой вот
today.
мой был
So this is my
здесь
path
и
here,
продолжается сейчас.
and I continue doing the same things.
Please pass a microphone to Pavda Alexander. Pavda Alexander, could you please tell some words about you?
Labadiena. Меня зовут Александр Кухта.
Good day, my
Я
name is Alexander Kukhta.
священник из
I'm a
Беларуси.
priest from Belarus.
Как уже
As
говорила,
it was
Наталья, у
mentioned
меня
by
есть,
Natalia,
блог,
I have a
в
blog
основном.
in
Наверно-
YouTube.
наверное, это крупнейший
I think it's
независимый блог,
the biggest
в
independent
нашем
blog
постсоветском
in
регионе,
our
где
post-Soviet
кто-то говорил о христианстве,
region
о вере,
where
о
Christianity is being discussed and
Я сам из
faith
Беларуси. В
is
2008
also
году,
being
когда
a
президентские
point
выборы,
of
после
these
которых начались
of this discussion.
массовые
I came here
репрессии,
when
военные
the
протесты.
big repressions back in 2020
участие в
started,
некоторых событиях,
and
например,
I
стоял
was
кордоном
part of
между,
some of the
ОМОНом и
activities.
людьми.
I was between the
Я
OMON
служил
and the
публичную,
people, and I was
поминальную службу по одному из
serving I was performing a service after Roman Bondarenko, one of the social activists, and I was writing different letters to support the Belarusians who are currently in jail. And at one point it was clear that it was important for me to leave because the government started also imprisoning the priests, and I came here to Lithuania. And now I am part of Constantinople Patriarchate. And since you know that in Lithuania there was a very big scale story, 5 priests were kicked out of the church, and I joined them because they denied the war. And so I am part of this. Now we have 2 priests from Belarus. In Vilnius we have our own service, and we're the only one Belarusian church that are taking part in Belarusian activities. The service is performed in Belarusian language, and we can still be Belarusian Orthodox Church members, and we're saying that the dictators are the dictators, and violence is violence, and war is war. Laba diena, good day. My name is Anna. I'm a psychologist, a children's psychologist. Despite the fact that I came here from Moscow, my childhood was occurring in Ukraine and in Poland. And I think that the issues of immigration started for me not in 2020, but a long time ago. But it was an internal immigration where the propaganda of Russia started claiming its own that was outside of Ukraine, and it was obvious that the war is going to happen. But in 2022, we have seen what happened, and my children, my daughter and her husband, they had to leave physically Russia because they were the journalists in opposition, and it was understood that they were not only not allowed to work, but also maybe they will be persecuted because of their actions. After some time, they came to Lithuania, and now they work here. They can also call war a war. They can express themselves freely. And it is very important for me because they have our grandson that I would like for him to know that good people live not only in Russia, as it's being suggested at the schools right now, but that people can be friends, they can live peacefully, and they can be happy. And when I came to Vilnius, I came in a humanitarian visa, and at first I became a volunteer at a project that is being conducted by Reform Space. I work with teenagers. We try to speak of the issues that they are involved in. We try to adapt them. And I think that after some time we're going to discuss integration. But at this point we're only discussing adaptation. Another thing I'm doing here is International Childhood Research Institute. And I'm working with children whose primary language is Russian, and they have some issues with, let's say, children with autism, or maybe they are having difficulty to adapt to school and other neurodivergence.
I will ask now Egle maybe to say some words about what your organization is doing, how you're working with refugees from war, maybe with other migrants, and how many people actually you have to work with.
Hello everyone, thank you for invitation. My name is Egle. I am manager of Foreign Integration Center here in Vilnius, in Caritas. So actually our center, we cover different projects here in Vilnius. We're working with communities, with professional social consultations, as well employment consultations, legal consultations, psychological help. Also, our focus is on children and community support. So maybe I will share also later what do we do with communities and how I think it's important in integration process here in Lithuania. Thank you.
Thank you. Now maybe we will move a little bit further to your stories, deeper into your stories, and mostly about your integration here, how it happens in some way. I think it's people like happy to acquire you here, but still the life is life and there can be some problems. So I would like you to say some words about this, and maybe I will start with Ksenia again. How it was, how people in Lithuania welcomed you here, but what problems do you find here also?
I think that the biggest issue for us, for all of us, is language. It is very clearly that we need to learn the language in order to adapt, in order to integrate properly, and all of our projects, proposals are starting from that. Together with children, it's easy to learn the language because we sing songs. When we are exposed to music, we learn the language much faster, and it solves the issue of learning the language. Because we sing, we watch the musical films, and by these activities we're learning the language, and it helps us a lot. Another issue is of integration into the society, and among Ukrainians specifically. I think that we're trying, and I myself am doing that, and telling this to other people, that we need to gather into groups, professional or otherwise, maybe emotional. In that way, we will find what we can do well, explain it to others, that it can be perceived by others, and that we can be accepted. Something that we know how to do well. So trying to find yourself, trying to suggest something to others, continue learning, see how learning occurs here. On my example, pedagogical and musical experience, we need to communicate. The more meetings we have, the more communication we're having, the better and faster we're solving the problems, and we can support one another.
Now the question to you, was it easier to you to find maybe some language courses where you can learn the language, or it's only through musical activities that you do it? I will translate to Ksenia. Было ли вам легко найти курсы литовского языка, да, или только вот через музыкальную деятельность?
Ну, через музыкальную это как дополнение, конечно же. Вот. А конечно,
of course. But of course, there are a lot of different courses, and we're very thankful that they are out there, and people can find them. Only you need to have your wish, your will to find it. In Kaunas specifically, at this specific moment, I'm taking the courses, of course, and it's my second time I'm taking the courses already. There are free ones, and there are also the ones that are paid. Sometimes these services provide even a stipend. This is a wonderful experience, and this is a wonderful support from the Lithuanian government, and I'm very thankful for that.
Continue a little bit on this, but sometimes it's very difficult for migrants, because when you need to work, first of all, to get some money to procure your livelihood, is it difficult for you to combine language courses and the work all together? Because sometimes to work you need the language, and then you need to, when you work a lot, you need to find time for language courses, so it goes hand in hand. I will translate myself. Поскольку очень часто, да, для того, чтобы найти работу, надо знать литовский язык и учить. И ты много работаешь для того, чтобы обеспечить себя в миграции. Насколько сложно и легко вот это вот соединять, да, потому что это такой немножко замкнутый круг возникает, когда ты много работаешь, у тебя не хватает времени на учебу, Соответственно,
Я поняла, супранту.
I understood the question, thank you. Yes, of course, it's very difficult, but what I want to say is when we are here in safety, when everything around is wonderful, I think the most important is safety, that we live here and the sun is shining and there are no missiles exploding over our heads. And it means that in this situation we can always find the time to solve the issue. I think it's our personal task of every single person, because it is hard, but it's not comparable with whatever is happening in my country. We have the conditions here to do that, and I think only maybe natural laziness can be challenging or a challenge on the way. I'm thankful to God that we're here today and we can work and study and not be lazy, because Lithuania is providing all the possibilities. Here is my pedagogical, professional say that we need to work.
To Father Alexander, now I would like to ask you, of course for you maybe it was a little bit easier because you found the church here, and it was easier to integrate, you have a job, and still it's maybe difficult to live here with one job.
Well, as I have already mentioned, for me personally it's a little bit easier because I am a priest, I have my church, I have a job in Lithuania, but of course I meet a lot of people, Belarusians for example, who visit the church, and of course we have to understand that I am not a human rights defender. I cannot work on the integration of Belarusians in Lithuania legally, but of course we communicate, and I can of course tell you the problems that they tell me, and it's all very complicated really, because Belarusians in Lithuania are, I would say, three types or three groups. About 60,000 Belarusians live in Lithuania, and the first group, the largest, are economical migrants. That means they were searching for better life and came to Lithuania. The second group, gray zone, because formally or legally they came for better life, and they have no reason to be here apart from better salary. But when they came to Lithuania, as we're saying in Belarus, in order to end up in prison, you can just comment something in Facebook. So now when they come back to Belarus, they have a very, very big chance of finding themselves behind bars. But this group, this gray zone, is it's very complicated for them to really justify why now they cannot go back to Belarus. And once they have to renew their passport, their visa, their documents, they have to somehow prove that it is not safe for them, not secure to go back to Belarus. Some of them have to go back to Belarus and renew their passports, and they want to come back to Lithuania. Some of them have been successful, but some of them not. And some of these people who have gone back to Belarus, they ended up in prison and they couldn't do anything about it. And the third group are people who have humanitarian visa or they or asylum in Lithuania, and it's all quite going quite well, because Lithuania really takes care of these people, and there are some very good examples that maybe it would be possible now to get this humanitarian visa for 3 years, because before that it was only possible for 1 year. And again, one more thing, Lukashenko regime has forbidden Belarusians to get or renew their passports in the embassies in other countries. That means if my passport is expiring soon, I have only one one way to do it. I have to go to Belarus to renew my passport. What that means? That means once I enter Belarus, I will be arrested and I will be imprisoned for from 10 to 20 years. Depends on my luck. So usually in Lithuania, Poland, in such countries, Belarusians really get a lot of support, and they have the opportunity on humanitarian grounds to receive passports, foreigners' passports. That means that they can live in the European Union countries. So this is very good, and this is a good practice. So what is important? Really, we have a lot of Belarusians that are in the gray zone, as I have mentioned before. This means that these people have no formal proof to get asylum in Lithuania, and to get it is very difficult to prove that politically it is dangerous for this person to come back, because if this person comes to our migration services in Lithuania and shows several comments on Facebook and that they have been KGB, Belarusian KGB has been calling them, it's not proof enough for them to get support. I understand this is a complex question. This is but it is a very important question, and I wanted to highlight this problem, to highlight that it exists, and there are Belarusians that are forced to go back to Belarus, and as a result, they end up behind bars.
This big Belarusian community and the small Russian community, I mean the migrants who came after the beginning of the war. But still now there's a tendency in Lithuania to put them on the same scale, yeah, maybe migrants from Belarus and from Russia, and to forbid the same stuff to Belarusians to Russians. On the other hand, we had this political and historical theory, Litvinism, who came into the public space, and I would explain what it is. It was formulated by a Lithuanian historian, and he said that Belarusians are pretending to occupy Lithuania, that historically Belarusians think that Lithuania is a part of Belarus. And I know that was a lot of bad sentiments among the Belarusian community about this. What can you say about this situation?
Well, having in mind this topic, I would say this. Any person or media who want to speak about it as a problem, they work for Belarusian KGB, for Putin regime, and so on and so forth. If you allow me, I would like to speak more about this topic. For example, I was born in Belarus, in Grodnenska Oblast, in a small town. And throughout the history, there has never been a border between this town and Vilnius, historically. Just because this is how it was. Our region, along and near this river, we just never had a border. So still, Belarus and Lithuania are very much related. We have a connection, and a lot of families have their relatives, and many families just live, like one part of the family lives in Belarus, another part of the family lives in Lithuania. And again, historically we had the great Duchy of Lithuania, and then we had Vytautas the Great, and so on and so forth. So again, if we are going back to our roots and to our history, we have to understand that mostly both nations own this past. And we have to be just, we have to have just a dialogue about it. We have to be calm about it. And the second way is just to start arguing about it. And so now the question of this Litvinism is when we are saying that, for example, this or that historical figure or this or that author, it is ours and not yours, or vice versa. What it sparks, it only sparks unnecessary discussion. So this is unnatural arguing, which I would say Belarusian KGB just takes to the surface in order to bring instability. So I would say that any person who seriously speaking about this problem is, of course, favoring and playing for Belarusian KGB. What can we do is bring normal, healthy dialogue. And for this, we just have to have a will, and then there will be a way.
I'm going to you now. You're a migrant from Russia, and I understand that it could be very unpleasant, let's say it so, to be some kind of representative of a country aggressor in another country which is helps a lot of Ukraine and understands very well what is the violence coming from another part of the border means. So how do you feel in Lithuania? There were some kind of situation that you were said, you are from Russia, we don't want to talk to you, or how it happens when you are here?
I think it's not only me, but everybody who came from my country, from Russia, they all saying that Lithuania is a very hospitable country, and we feel good here. And as Natalia has mentioned, when something is when the courses, for example, are quite complex, you can just go to Vilnius University and you take 1 year and you learn the language. You know, so people. Adults, they can solve their problems here, both with documents and with language. But children, and especially teenagers, for them it's a completely different story. And the child usually cannot choose what country he or she comes from. If you have a passport of this aggressor country, it's very difficult. Bullying, of course, still exists. And we have children from Belarus, from Russia, from Ukraine, also Russian-speaking kids from Lithuania. So we can say that in 2 or 3 years' time, children adapt in this or that way. But I think that the integration, the question of integration of these children into the Lithuanian society is quite difficult. It's very difficult to somehow tie these relationships. If we had some events, for example, where Russian-speaking children or children who are in Ukrainian schools, in Belarusian schools, or those children who come to our center, so they could, during some event, communicate with children, Lithuanian children, that would be very nice. And then we would speak about integration, not about adaptation. And again, children, especially teenagers, whatever they think about what is happening in Belarus or Russia, however, they can understand that this is a country aggression, but their friends are there still in Belarus or Russia. Their grandmothers or grandfathers are still there. Their good emotions and their heart is left there. And this cannot be denied. And these children are usually very intellectual, and these children, they didn't choose to leave their country, but they're here, and back in their country, with their potential, they might have been the elite of the society. So if Lithuania accepts these children, they might become very prominent citizens for this country, and they're ready for that.
We will come back a little bit late to this topic, but I would like to ask you, Anna, also about you personally still. When you go here to some kind of administrative building and asking for providing you services, or when you were opening your individual entrepreneurship, how it was, how people are reacting that you came from Russia and trying to build your life, new life here? Когда вы приходите, ну, в какие-то административные центры, да, где, ну, за какими-то услугами, вот вы запускали свою индивидуальную деятельность, как реагируют чиновники на то, что вы приехали из России, по сути дела, да, страны-агрессоры сейчас, потому что психологически, я понимаю, это очень сложно, когда мы видим то, что Россия делает в Украине.
It is very difficult to see what Russia is doing in Ukraine, to accept a person from Russia, because we just have some kind of psychological barrier. So how does it influence you? No, I absolutely do not feel it or experience it. Even the opposite, if we're speaking about the individual entrepreneurship here in Lithuania, I was shocked that you are being provided with the information, what you need to do. Also, they consult you about all the aspects, especially for you. And once you are leaving some institution, they are asking you, did you really understand it? Look, there are some details. I can explain you one more time. Or I will give you a piece of advice. You should do it like this and this. Or you can... so, you know, they really help. They're really helpful. And I would say that they see not a function or you as a person. And that was really, really surprising for me. And as for aggressor country, no, I haven't seen this attitude neither from the officials at the institutions of Lithuania, neither from people who I can call my friends now, nor from people who came from Ukraine, that is the country that is under Russia's aggression at the moment, and so on. I'm sorry to interrupt. One more time, I wanted to tell you about a small personal problem that I have faced quite recently. So here in the territory of Lithuania, I am on humanitarian grounds at the moment, and I think it's normal for any person, and it's obvious for any person who lives in another country to start liking the history, the culture, to start delving deeper into the cultural layers of the country where you live, and it is also very important to learn the language, to learn the Lithuanian language in order to be able to understand the culture, the history, and so on. So, as I know, especially the refugees from Belarus, they were provided with free of charge courses of Lithuanian language. It's not about you, but I know that for Ukrainians it does work. But when myself, I decided that I really need Lithuanian language and I would like to learn it more in a more systematic manner and not just several words and several phrases, I was surprised to learn that from March this year in Lithuania, for Belarusians, also for Belarusian refugees, free of charge courses, Lithuanian language courses, are not available anymore. You can learn the language, but you have to pay, and it's quite a substantial amount. So, again, Belarusians who came here just with one piece of luggage, sometimes without any documents, and they left everything in their home country, this is quite problematic. So again, I would like to highlight this problem because I think it is quite important. Why is it so important? Because people who cannot learn the language, they need to cocoon themselves somehow in their own environment, and then they are not integrated into the society. So again, I would like to highlight this problem because Belarusians, especially refugees from Belarus, these are people who really want to integrate and they would really like to learn the language. And this refusal for free of charge Lithuanian language courses, I think, might interfere with that.
No, your turn. You have this overview of the situation with migrants. You know better, maybe everyone else, the main issue, the main challenges they have. Could you please draw this picture?
Yeah, actually, I was thinking now that you could say that there are many challenges, and you can say that it's very difficult to find an apartment, to find a job, to know the language. But when you think deeper, there is always something behind. And I think the biggest challenge is the fear of receiving community to open themselves and to getting to know newcomers in the country. So that's why then we face, in our work, we face difficulties by finding a job, by finding apartment, by integrating. So I think that integration is not only about all these things. It's also about how people feel after all. When you have apartment, when you have a job, your kids are going to the school. But what you have after, when people are afraid of you and you are not a part of community. So I think the biggest problem is to develop this connection between two communities and to make it work. To make receiving community open and somehow include newcomers.
And how can we do it? How can we persuade the acquiring community, the hosting community, that you need to be open?
Yeah. This is the biggest challenge, but it is a huge work with our communities here in Lithuania. And actually, we see in the past years that the number of people coming to our countries are rising really, really high. So as well, our work with our community is supposed to rise as well, because as many people, new people we have here in Lithuania, we have bigger and bigger fear of people to receive a new community.
Mm-hmm. But it also maybe depends on where these migrants land. Maybe it's in the capital city, in Vilnius, in Kaunas. It's a little bit easier. You have many jobs and people more open. But if they come to some to some towns, yes, it's more difficult to them to integrate there. Or usually they stay in big cities?
Yeah, usually they stay in big cities, actually. Of course, you can find people that are living in some regions. Of course, it's much easier to find a job here, but it's not only about finding a job, because when you find a job, then sometimes we have to deal with the problems for people are not getting paid for example, half a year. People coming from Ukraine, Belarus, Russian, and then we face that our community, they can give job to people, but they will not act with the rights.
Mm-hmm. And what about children? Because as we understand from Ukraine, for example, it was mainly mothers with children, with grandmothers, women that came. How was the integration of children? You bring them to Lithuanian schools, to Russian-speaking schools, or Lithuanian-speaking school. How it goes?
Actually, it's the choice of parents, so they choose in which kind of school they want to go. But then for children, I think it's much easier, because they don't have some kind of barriers that we have maybe. So for them, it's very easy. Yeah, they can, for example, they don't have common language, but they will understand each other and they will welcome each other. So for them, it's much easier.
Mm-hmm. Maybe with this I will go to Ksenia, because you work with children a lot. What we can do, what the migrants themselves can do to help other people, other migrants to integrate here. And I think you are doing a great job in this sense. I will translate. Что могут, да, сами мигранты делать для интеграции других мигрантов? И вы работаете с детьми, как вы
помогаете? How do you help with the migrants in order to support their integration and into life? It's a very difficult question. Based on my personal experience, of course, repeating myself maybe a little bit here, what we're doing, we're collaborating into groups and we're providing some meetings. We create projects that we can be part of. And speaking here about the cultural aspect, it's not enough to just work and go back home. We need to communicate, and I think that by organizing a variety of projects where we can meet up, engage with one another and collaboratively do something by enriching each other by our experience, our knowledge. Very specific thematic stories that can be shared. This is how I understand it for myself. Maybe someone else has other ideas. But it is also important to participate in a variety of events that are occurring. For instance, my Ukrainian friends and the organization, we have been taking part in a big event in Caritas where we were collecting money for Ukraine. We were communicating and we were meeting with one another. And it's also very nice to realize when we are being invited into different projects by other organizations, it means that they remember us and they know of us and they think of us. Something regarding to culture. Of course, we're looking for a variety of events to participate in and to get there. And we're very happy that the opportunities are numerous. And we can look on the internet what happens in Vilnius, in Kaunas. We call one another and we go to participate in these events. So we are helping to integrate, to participate, and to be part of the community. The more events, various ones, humanitarian, cultural, the more opportunities we have for good integration. This is my opinion.
Do you keep these internal connections inside the Ukrainian community? Насколько вы поддерживаете связи внутри украинской комьюнити здесь, да? Насколько оно взаимосвязано?
Мы взаимосвязаны, потому что, во-первых, очень много украинских встреч в общинах украинских.
Meetings in Ukrainian communities, and we're communicating with one another using internet. We find different platforms. We're looking for those groups in Ukrainian groups, and we can observe the new availabilities, the new things that are happening. Thanks to the communities, thanks to these groups, other events that are occurring in Lithuania as well, where we're going there. So we find one another, we communicate. I would like to say that generally we're quite active. And we want to bring value to one another here. And we're very thankful for the support that Lithuania is providing us. We're actively participating in everything that is being suggested, or when our help is required, we also come.
When you organize some events here in Lithuania, do many local people come to visit you and to take part in your events? Если вы организовываете какие-то мероприятия, приходят ли местные, да, литовцы, неважно, любого?
Да, дело в том, что здесь очень много живет украинцев, которые
Actually, there are quite a lot of Ukrainians that came back in the 90s, after the collapse of the Soviet Union and the countries became independent, there are so many Ukrainians here, and I learned different communities and found out about different people here. This is a new generation almost that has just recently come, and we started communicating all together. It's wonderful, I think, and we're all very actively developing our friendships, and we're finding one another in the social media. And a lot of people who are from Ukraine and live here for 20 years, for 30 years, and it enriches us as well.
Other people, not Ukrainians by nationality, how do they interact with you? Остальные, ну вот, которые не украинцы, переехавшие, просто местные жители, как они реагируют, присоединяются ли к вашим мероприятиям?
Присоединяются, да.
Of course, they are joining, and they react very positively, I would say.
Так как у нас культурная такая деятельность,
since we have cultural activity and humanitarian activity, a lot of Lithuanians who join us, they are supporting by providing information.
Я видела, как когда шел сбор помощи.
And when we were collecting collecting money for Ukraine in Caritas, there were very young families that came, and they were bringing something, and they left, and some things, and adults as well, or elderly people. And how the Lithuanians generally react to supporting. I have heard this opinion that after 2 years of war, people get used to it and they don't react to the fact that the war is happening. But no, I don't think that. I can see that Lithuanians are reacting positively to us, and they're continuously supporting us, and I would like to say thank you very much.
Now, because I would like to continue this theme with, about children, about the integration, and Ksenia started from her point of view to talk about this, and I would like to ask you, what can we do to help these children to integrate? You started already on it, but how can we help parents? What parents can do for their children? Что родители делают, что нам надо делать,
explain once again the question? How to integrate the children, how to help them? Could you please elaborate on what you have been previously mentioning? I think if parents have done enough already when they brought their children to a safe country, that the country that supported them in this. Another thing is that immigration is very hard, both for an adult and their children, because anxiety, depression, and other different states that sometimes require medical assistance are a big thing in this. And what we're doing in International Childhood Research Institute, it feels sometimes like we're just doing everything the same. We have a guy every Friday at 12 that arrives to our center, and he comes weekly because he can't find in his city. With adaptation, we're helping him, even though he studies. He studies in Lithuanian school, so he's trying to. He came to Lithuania back to 2022, and now he has very high. He has very high marks at school, and I think if we could scale what we are actually doing, and in addition to the challenges existing that are felt by the adults, of course, it's war that is happening against not only Ukraine, but everything that is occurring currently. And if we would receive help to support people to become part of the society, to integrate, and I think that parents have done so much wonderful things in order to achieve these goals.
Condition, how can they, what they should say to their children now when they are adopting here? Что должны родители говорить детям, да, когда уже здесь в эмиграции, когда они здесь интегрируются?
While in immigration, during integration, after they have moved, what should the parents say to their children? Because it's not the end of the story. Of course, a lot of things depend on the age of the child, because we had questions about what to say to the children of for preschoolers, how to speak about Putin or how to speak about war to preschoolers. And the suggestion is to read Chukovsky, a Russian author. There is a character that is a roach, and he was a very dangerous and scary one. And the story goes like this, that the big roach was scaring everyone, but then there was a bird that came by and ate this roach. So children need to understand what is happening using different associations. We also have projects that help adaptation for children. We have one of the projects, Vilnius, and it talks about the culture of Lithuania and its culture. Send the parents there and their children there so that they can study the history of the government, which is being presented completely in a different light back in their home countries.
Должны ли родители показывать вот свою обеспокоенность? Or they should just say, well, everything is fine, the future will be fine, so let's just be calm and live here. То есть давайте просто жить спокойно, как они, насколько естественны родители должны быть в своем поведении.
How natural should the parents be in their behavior? When the parents are not natural in their behavior, and the parents have a diagnosed clinical depression, for instance, they're trying to explain to their children that the future is wonderful and everything is great. So the children of younger age, they read non-verbal cues, how the parents are behaving and not what they are being said to. And it brings to even bigger anxiety. But with teenagers, and older children, they cannot be lied to. They perceive all the information from the parents' side. They see what's happening around. They understand what is happening in the world, and you need to be frank and honest, and you need to discuss the issues that might arise in the future.
Concerning the different age groups, are the teenagers most vulnerable, or what age is most vulnerable in this situation among children? Какой возраст наиболее уязвим, да, среди детей в плане?
Это подростковый возраст, безусловно.
I think it's during the teen age. Based on the psychological peculiarities, it is a very difficult age in any country. I think it's the same. And the children who have been taken away from their usual environment and their groups that they have formed, or their friends, and they are in separation. When parents become less and less important, even though we might be very sad about it, you need to find new groups, new society, engage in a new way, and they need to do it with no language or with a very low language skills, and it's very hard for them to do. So small children, they look at the parents more, at their level of happiness, basically. And if the parents require psychological assistance, we have a very good group of specialists, psychotherapists, that are supporting the parents, and they can, so that the parents can provide this happy childhood for their children.
What Belarusian community is doing maybe to help other people integrate here, And what do you think they can do for this Lithuanian society as well?
Ну, наверное, мне сложно ответить глобально на этот вопрос.
It's very hard to quickly respond globally, because I'm part of the Belarusian community in Lithuania on one hand. However, on the other hand, as I mentioned earlier, I communicate with a lot of individuals, and I have noticed a tendency that primarily touches Belarusians that live based on the humanitarian support and protection, and that can be the closest community members of the Lithuanians that need to solve the issues. We understand that the escalation can occur towards other countries as well, and Lithuania is unfortunately in the zone of the risk. And I think that Belarusians that have escaped Belarus due to possible persecutions, I think that these Belarusians can become their allies, and they left from Belarus and they found their identity in other countries. Back in the days, the embassies were providing the opportunity for Lithuanians to come back to Lithuania. So due to these embassies, it was Lithuania was able to restore its status. And I think that the number of the people who are crossing the border every day after they have taken their course in jail and they might be persecuted again, this number of individuals is not lowering. And these people who arrive on the territory of Lithuania, potentially, they can be the potential allies because they have lost everything. And because the person who has lost everything, such person is ready to find allies, to become part of the community, and in this community already support with the common foe, with the common enemy. And right now I'm not speaking specifically about Lithuanian government, because the government is doing everything with a stable manner, but I think it's about the headlines, shouting headlines that are pushing the Belarusians somewhere out. I think there was an article in LRT, and a Belarusian blogger shared some opinion about this. Of course, it was mentioned that the newspaper does not share this information with the author and its independent opinion. And it was mentioned that let's not forget that because Belarusians were part of the course of Lukashenko and everything, and if you see that there's a Belarusian next to you, or you see someone in the future, you can go over to them and spit into the face. Of course, this wasn't mentioned directly by such words, but it was kind of written in this way. So I would like to ask you, this driver or this person, why would he be this victim of phantom menace in this case, and being offended because of something he wasn't doing? Another thing, there was a questionnaire about Lithuanians and how do they feel about certain nationalities and how do they feel, what is the best nationality, who are the friendliest ones or the less friendliest ones. And on the second place was Belarus. What I'm trying to point at, please put yourself on the place of someone who has lost everything and they come to a safe place and they want to become part of the society, they want to find support, but reading this article, they feel bullied. And such person can get closed in themselves. And I think what we can do for a better integration of Belarusians into Lithuanian society, so it's healthy and better, we need to break this wall and support and provide support to those who are looking for it and who have proven by their life and by their activity that they really deserve this support, and look for the allies in these people, because they will become the first line of defense in case the danger arrives, because they will be thankful. And out of this feeling of thankfulness, they will be protecting. I think that we need to break this barrier, and I will be very thankful if you would do this the same.
Yes, of course, yes. Anna would like to add.
I think that it reminds me of something that I was going to say about the teenagers. If the teenagers, maybe after 3-4 years, and they have their heart not in this country, if they didn't find friends, if they didn't find support in this country, and they only found alienation that was connected to their passport and to the country they were born in. If we look into their genetics, we will learn that they are Ukrainians, Polish, and whatever, and not even Russians. And maybe I don't even like what I am sharing here right now, but if they realize that the country that they are in right now can also be their motherland, it's very difficult to realize on what end they will be
I would like
when
to
the escalation actually
the
occurs.
Topic that Father Alexander started on the media responsibility, but also on the other hand, we understand that still a lot of people here in Lithuania, they under this disinformation still comes here, and people believe that it wasn't Putin who started the war in Ukraine, that maybe you are, it's your fault that you were repressed in Belarus, or that in Lithuania there was a lot of corruption and so and so. So this disinformation from Russia, from Belarus, it coming and it works, it still works. So do you need to fight with it here in Lithuania? And maybe it also will be your help to Lithuanian society to overcome these views.
Yes, it is true. We have been raising this issue, and the issue of Litvinism and where does it grow from. It's important, I'm not an expert of course, but it's important to say this, and I'm just an observer that's communicating with a lot of people, but it seems that Lithuanian community and the opinion of people that is being formed by the media, we understand that not everyone needs to be an expert, but they need to understand about the things that are happening in Belarus and Russia. And probably people just want to simplify and divide everything into black and white, so that these people are good and these people are bad. However, we understand that it doesn't work that way, of course. We live in the 21st century and we have human rights that are and let's not forget about the things that we have achieved in our civilization and this humanity identity that we have suffered through the years. We're just thinking about the people who are affecting this general position. We need to work on it very carefully, but blur out this dichotomous view that people are either or, each of the sides. And we need to identify the people who do not agree with the dictatorship and who do not agree with the war, that we will be able to find the allies that will help us to win these regimes and to happen and to get to a world where there's a lot of love and acceptance in this world.
We still have the freedom of speech and we can say whatever we want in Lithuania. And thank you so much for everybody to come and to share your views. Special thank you to Ukrainians for your inspiration. Despite the war, that you are ready to bring this joy to life here. And thank you to Anna, to Father Alexander, to Egle, and we go into the next session soon.